Hello everyone, this is Glenda Winkleman and welcome back to Creative Grandma. It's Stitch of the Week time and this week's stitch is number 94 and it's called the Little Bobbles. And the reason it's called that is because it just creates these little tiny bumps, which I call bobbles, onto your crochet fabric and just makes a really nice delicate texture. This first sample I used regular 4 medium weight yarn. It's Super Saver in just classic white, and you can see how it creates a really nice little effect, textured effect. This would be really pretty if you use multi-strands for a rug. It just has that nice texture to it. Now I did use a size I9 5.5 millimeter hook to work up the samples in the 4 medium weight yarns. So this is just regular Super Saver. I used a size I9 hook in classic white. And then I have my sample where I change colors every row, and I have white in between each row of colors, and you can see how it creates a completely different look when you change colors every row. Just completely different look. And that's what I say. Sometimes you have to experiment with some of these crochet patterns, because what you might see on one item, depending on what yarn you use and things like that, it can totally change the look of a stitch pattern. And this is just one example. And again, this is 4-ply Super Saver medium weight yarn, and I used 4 different colors. And I have my third sample, and this is a multicolor lightweight yarn, and this I used a size 8H or a 5 millimeter hook. So I dropped down a hook size for the 3 lightweight yarn, and this was made out of this yarn that I got at AC Moore. It's like it looks like a hand painted yarn, but it's a multicolor, and it's just a wonderful effect. This would be good for a garment, a sweater. It's now you can see just a little bit of laciness to it. You could drop your hook size down one more hook size, but I kind of liked the drape of this when I dropped down to the size H hook with the number 3 lightweight yarn. So it just adds a nice lacy look. You can see through the holes, where the Super Saver is a lot thicker with this 4 medium weight yarn. You can see, you really can't see no holes. So it's all up to you. You can experiment with hook sizes and see what drape and what effect you like best. So this is the stitch, and the nice thing about this stitch is it's a 1-row repeat. We do our base row, and then we do row 2, and then row 2 you just repeat over and over. So it's just one of those 1-row repeats, which makes it so nice if you just want to make a blanket or a scarf and you want to do that while you're watching TV. This is the stitch pattern to use. So I'll be right back. I'm going to grab my yarn and my hook, and I'll be right back and show you how to make this pattern. So for today's sample, I'm using Red Heart Super Saver, and I'm using color Delft Blue number 885. And this stitch pattern is a multiple of 2 plus 1. So you would chain 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, 30, 32, 34, etc. And then when you get it the width you want, then you would add 1 additional chain. So to get started today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 25 chains. So I have my yarn on my hook. I already tied a double knot on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over my hook, and I'm going to pull through that loop. Now I'm using a size I9 hook because this Super Saver yarn's a little thick. So that's 1. This does not count as a chain. Yarn over, pull it through, that's 2. Yarn over, pull it through, that's 3. Continue until you have a chain with 25 chains, which is our multiple of 2 times 12, which is 24, and then we add 1 for a total of 25 chains. So go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back when I get my chain made. Now when we're working this stitch pattern, when you work your slip stitches, you really need to make them loosely so you can get into them easily and see them better. And so I have my chain 25 made, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip the first two chain, 1, 2, and we're going to work our first slip stitch in that third chain from hook, and you need to do that loosely. So skip 1, 2 chain, insert your hook from front to back in that third chain, yarn over the hook, pull it through that chain, and pull it through the loop on your hook. And make sure you do it loosely and you can see that slip stitch on top really nice. So now we're going to start our repeat. We're going to work a half double crochet into the next chain and a slip stitch into the next chain, and that's all there is to the pattern. So yarn over the hook, insert into that next chain, yarn over the hook, pull it through the chain. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over the hook and pull it through 3 loops. You just made your half double crochet. We're going to work a slip stitch into the next stitch, insert your hook into that next stitch and do this really loose. Yarn over the hook, pull it through that stitch and pull it through the loop on your hook. And when you do it loose, see how nice you can see that stitch? That's the end of the repeat. So we're going to start the repeat again, yarn over the hook, insert into that next chain and work a half double crochet. Insert your hook into that next chain and work a slip stitch loosely. Yarn over the hook, pull it through that stitch and pull it through the loop on your hook, making sure you don't make it tight. If you go in your stitch and you're working tight and you work that stitch, you can't hardly see it, and when you come back it makes it difficult to get your stitch into that slip stitch. So you're just going to do it really loose and just pull up a little bit and keep that stitch loose. And that's the end of your repeat. I'll show you one more time because this is all you're going to do, and you're going to do it right over to the end and end with a slip stitch into this last chain. So again, your repeat is yarn over the hook, insert it into that next chain and work a half double crochet. Insert your hook into the next chain and work a slip stitch loosely. And that's the end of the repeat. Work a half double crochet in the next chain, a slip stitch in the next, repeat that across, and you end with a slip stitch into this last chain. I'm going to go ahead and work across row 1, and I'll be back at the end of row 1. I'm over at the end of row 1, and you can see we have that 1 chain remaining. I just made a half double crochet, and now we're going to end with a slip stitch into that last chain. So insert your hook and just work a slip stitch loosely. So now we're going to start row 2, and row 2 is the row that you're going to work over and over again until you get it to the length that you prefer. So to start row 2, you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then you're going to turn your work. Now working on the back side tends to be a little tricky. You have to make sure you turn it and watch your stitches on the top, because it does create just a little bit of texture, and with the puffiness of it, it's best to just turn that work and look on top for those stitches here. We're going to start by skipping the first 2 chain because that counts as our beginning half double crochet, and the instructions say skip the first slip stitch. Well, this is the first slip stitch, so this counts as our first half double crochet. This is our first slip stitch, so we're going to skip that, and then we're going right into this next stitch, which is the half double crochet, and working a slip stitch. So insert your hook into that first double crochet. So what I do is just count down 3. 1, 2, 3. That way you're skipping your beginning half double crochet, those 2 chain, and you're skipping that first slip stitch. So just go 1, 2, 3. You're going to skip those, insert into that 4th stitch, and work a slip stitch loosely. Yarn over the hook, you're going to insert into that next stitch and work a half double crochet. Just look for that stitch on top, work a half double crochet. I tend to turn my work so I can see that next stitch. It's so much easier when you're looking here, this loop here and all this texture. It's so much easier to just turn it towards you, look for that next stitch on top. Insert into that next stitch under those top 2 strands and work a slip stitch loosely. Yarn over the hook, insert into that next stitch and work a half double crochet. So our repeat is starting with the slip stitch. Look for that next stitch, just turn your work towards you. Right here's that next stitch. Insert your hook into that next stitch and work a slip stitch loosely. This is the start of our repeat. Yarn over the hook, look for that next stitch, turn it towards you, look for that stitch, there it is, insert your hook and work a half double crochet. And that's the end of your repeat. So slip stitch in this next stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch, slip stitch in the next stitch, half double crochet in the next stitch. You're going to work across until you get to the end of row 2, and when you make that last half double crochet at the end of the row in this stitch here, you're going to stop. I'll meet you there, and then we have this chain 2 space right here, and then we're going to work in that. So when you get over here, stop when you make that last half double crochet, and I'll show you how to end your row. I'm over at the end of row 2, and it kind of looks like I'm finished, but we're not. Once you make that last half double crochet, you have to remember that there's a chain 2. Your turning chain 2 is right here. Now this is the 2 chain that we skipped in the beginning when we started the row, but they're there, and you're just going to go right into the top of that chain, and you're going to slip stitch loosely. So insert your hook right into the top of that ending chain 2 and work a slip stitch and make it loose. And that's how you finish the row. So you can just click back on the video. You just start where we start row 2, and you just repeat row 2 over and over until you get it the length you want. This is just a really quick and easy pattern. And again, here are my samples. And this, if you look at the 4 medium weight yarn, it has a lot more texture to it. The heavier the yarn, the more you're going to see the texture. If you change your colors, you get a completely different look. And then when you use a multicolor, it's the same pattern, but you just don't notice it. It's not as pronounced. This is extremely high and textured, where this is a little more subtle, a little more delicate in its appearance when you use the lightweight yarn and the smaller hook. So I hope you enjoyed this quick and easy, fast little pattern. It's just wonderful for sweaters and baby afghans. So remember, all my Stitch of the Week patterns are available on my website, creativegrandma.net. Just hit Stitch of the Week in the top right hand corner. It'll take you right to the stitch patterns. Just click on the name of the stitch and you can download it right to your computer. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of the crochet fun giveaways, you don't miss any of the Stitch of the Week or any of my show and tells or anything else I might decide to do. So thank you everybody for stopping by. Let me know your thoughts on this stitch. Happy crocheting, everyone.